I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's just a minute after 7, so we might as well go ahead and get started. We want to reward those who are on time, right? And I do want to make mention, welcome to Reset Church. I'm Pastor Jeff Hastings, and we are active in our community in this church. This is a church of patriots, and we're not ashamed of that. We do have some initiatives at the back of the room. If you have not signed, if you've not looked them over, if you've not had a chance to take a look at them, I encourage you to take a look at them. And if there's something you can support, please sign those before you leave tonight. The one is I-1436, making it optional to participate in Washington's long-term care insurance. I don't think long-term care insurance should be mandated by government. So, in fact, I don't think government should be mandating anything. So, but that would take us down a rabbit hole. We don't want to go tonight. The next one is 1422 and deals with the presidential electoral distribution and would allow a change in that process for Washington State. So if those are things that you could support and have not signed yet, those are back in the back of the room. Tonight's going to be just about meeting the candidates that are here. We had a few others that had said yes, haven't come. We're still waiting at least for one more that is confirmed to come. We're going to give them about 3 minutes or so each to tell you why you should support them in the run in the district that they're running for. And then we'll open it up for some question and answers afterwards. And we do have a microphone over here. Or if you're afraid of coming forward, I could come back and rove with a microphone and come to you. So with that, obviously, I don't anticipate anything getting crazy tonight. This is obviously a church, and we're just going to maintain our civility. And first of all, I want to say thank you to every one of the candidates, and I think we all should say thank you because it's a noble thing to stand up and do such a thing as run for an office. I appreciate all of our elected officials, and we make a habit of praying for them regularly in this church because they need our prayers. They need our support. And so could you give these candidates a hand even before we get started tonight for their bravery to do this? All right. With that, I'll just tell you this, that once we get to the Marysville, I've got their names in a bucket, just going to pull them out randomly. That way nobody thinks there's any favoritism. But since Lake Stevens is only represented now by one candidate, I really don't need to draw his name out of the bucket. Would you welcome Brett Rodgers as he comes?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm very honored and thrilled to be here. My name is Brett Rodgers. I'm running for school board in Lake Stevens. If you don't know, the Lake Stevens School District kind of creeps up into South Marysville a little bit. So people that live in the city of Marysville can go to school in the Lake Stevens School District. Only got a few minutes, so I'll be very brief and I guess a little bit vague, but you can learn more about me at votebrett.org. My background is mostly law enforcement with a little bit of law sprinkled in there. The things that I think will be most appropriate and most interesting to you is during my career with the City of Seattle Police Department, I oversaw the audit policy and research section. We were kind of tasked with making sure that we were following our own guidelines. We were adhering to any requirements that the federal government put on us for grants, things like that. I also conducted internal investigations for 4 years there. Later, I conducted internal investigations for 3 years with Seattle Public Schools, which was kind of my hook, my in to the education system. So I'm bringing a bit of a different perspective. I'm a little bit concerned with the way that school districts have been traditionally run, at least the last 30, 40, 50 years. It's kind of a closed universe. You have educators that are union members, and I've got nothing wrong with organized labor. I have a problem with some teachers' unions, and that's kind of an aside. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole right this second. But then they sometimes move up into administration, and their friends are still in the unions, and some of them move up into the school board. And so you have this kind of closed system, and It's a closed loop, and I'm really concerned that when it comes down to it, they say it's all about the kids, but it's really not. It's all about saving face politically. It's all about the unions pushing their agendas and squeezing as much money out of the taxpayers as they can. To a point, I'm okay with that. We got to make a living, and we want to. If we have good educators, I want them compensated well because we need to retain them. So instead of an education background, I'm looking at this more as a government accountability and focus in that regard. I want to keep our district accountable to the voters and the parents and the taxpayers. One of my main concerns is we need to get back to focusing like a laser on actual basic education. We need to keep the promotion of any political ideologies out of the classroom. We need to keep the promotion of sexual activity out of the classroom. The Washington State Constitution says that it's a paramount duty of the state to provide education. In the Lake Stevens School District, just under 70% of our students meet the state standard in English, and just about 55% meet the state standard in math. We're failing our kids. That's D and F work, at least it used to be when I was in school. And so I don't understand why, given the system, we continually throw more and more money at it for a failing system. So I want to help change that. I want to bring more transparency. I want to follow the dollars. I'd love to wean the district off of federal money if we can. We get far too many requirements and things we have to comply with that I think most of us probably wouldn't agree with. So that's kind of my goal right there. Again, votebrett.org. I'm going to be respectful of my time because I'm probably over it by a little bit as it is, but not sure how we are for Q&A, but happy to answer any questions. Okay, very good.
Questions? There's a microphone over here, or I can come to you if you like. You're all so quiet tonight. We've got so many hot potatoes out there. Yes, yeah, we'll do it again at the end. Kind of free for all. So, good question. How many from Lake Stevens School District are here tonight? Okay, back there. Thank you. All right. And any questions for the candidate?
There's two open seats, myself and Carolyn Bennett. We pretty much see eye to eye. Well, there's four candidates altogether, two going for each of the two seats, but Carolyn, I think, was supposed to make it here tonight and wasn't able to. Lake Stevens School District, this board has 5 positions total, so even if Carolyn and I were to get elected, we would still be in the minority. However, I think there's a lot of good we can still do. We can pump the brakes. I don't know if you've been to a school board meeting, but it's almost like a cocktail hour in Lake Stevens. There's lots of laughter, lots of patting each other on the back, very little serious discussion, very little probing, pointed questions of the administration. And it kind of turns my stomach a little bit, frankly. One of the things they do is, just briefly, one board meeting I was at, they were bringing up a new curriculum. I think it was English language arts. They've been working for 2 years to get this together and get it ready to be approved. They realized that they needed to get it approved immediately if they were going to have time to order materials for the upcoming school year. So they had 2 years they were working on this. They brought it to the board, and they needed them to pass it that night. There was a lot of discussion about stakeholders and who was all involved in the decision-making process, but there was no discussion about what would actually be taught. And at the end of it, it was just aye or nay, and it passed. So we still didn't know what was going to be taught. I will call for a roll call vote every single time. I want to put everybody on the record. Do you support this or do you not? And that record will follow them. And then in 2 years, when the remaining 3 seats are up, we hope to have a record that people can either vote for or hopefully against.
What's the relationship like between the board and the superintendent? And how do you see that functioning?
So, the superintendent of the Lake Stevens School District makes as much, if not slightly more, than the superintendent of Seattle Public Schools, which is 6 times the size of the Lake Stevens district. I don't know the guy, so maybe he's worth it, maybe he's not. But over $300,000 in our community is too much, in my opinion. I don't know what kind of a selection process there was. This is his first year. The old superintendent retired at the end of last school year. But I'm concerned that the board has given up too much of their authority. You know, the voters elect the board, and then the board sets policy and runs the district. They select the superintendent, and when the superintendent steps out of bounds, the board is supposed to reel them in, and if need be, let them go. The Lake Stevens School Board has really, in my opinion, ceded way too much of their authority to the superintendent and has pretty much become a rubber stamp. So whatever the district administration wants to do, it appears to me that the board goes along with, and that's completely backwards.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I have a question about one of the things you said. So if the board does not like the superintendent or thinks he's doing a bad job, even if he's got a contract to the end of the year, they can let him go?
You know, I imagine there's a lot of intricacies and details and things that could factor in, but it has happened where, you know, they might have to pay out the contract, but they can let the superintendent go if they've got cause, or at the end of the year when the contract's up, we're not seeing eye to eye, you're not doing what we want you to do, you're gone. Yeah.
So is it a year contract then that they sign?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's an annual contract with the superintendents.
Hi, good evening. I love the fact that you said, pretty much what you said, going in and holding everyone accountable, especially the financial part. And I'm a parent, right? And Marysville and Lake Stevens are very close. Going in, and you're going to see some numbers that doesn't make sense, right? How do you propose on making those numbers go back to our children? Because that's where it should be going, right? And as a parent, I need that help to take care of my children too in there. So that's it.
Yeah, so the schools get their funding from the state. That's where they get most of their money. They do get some from federal, and there might be some other sources of income. But basically, it's a flat rate per pupil, about 15,000, 16,000. So I've been hearing rumors. Now, this hasn't been addressed by the board yet, but I've been hearing rumors that people are so fed up with public education in general, all the COVID requirements, and how Lake Stevens is currently being run, that people are pulling their kids out. And I believe it's October 4th is kind of the deadline date where Lake Stevens reports out to the state, here's how many kids we have enrolled, and that determines their funding for the entire year. I've been hearing rumors, but nothing substantial yet, that it could be as many as 500 kids, which is about 5%. I gotta do the math on the fly here. About 5% of our students we're losing, so that's 5% of our funding. They're going to be looking at having to lay people off, lay off staff. And I would think that if they can see this on the horizon, they should be addressing that publicly now and bracing people for this. And this is completely separate from the governor's vaccination mandate. There could be more, we could be losing more staff because of that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in early October.
Anybody else?
Where does the school board stand on the mandates, the vaccine mandates?
The current board is completely for them, and they've accepted some federal money that I believe kind of obligates them to do certain things, which is one of the reasons why I would like to wean the district off of federal funds, so the community can decide how we want to approach things like that. But I've got to, I don't know what's in their minds and in their hearts, but just from the meetings I've been to and listening to them speak, I think even if they weren't required to, I really think this current board would be all for all the COVID mandates.
With a greater interest these days in school board meetings, there have been some that more parents have shown up than can speak or have time allotted. What kind of measures would you take to help facilitate parental concern and input to the board?
Yeah, so the meetings I've been to, it's kind of tapered off a little bit, but towards the end of last school year into the summer, parents were fired up, and there was a greater attendance at the meetings. Second and fourth Wednesday of every month, I think at 6:30, you can sign up and get 3 minutes to speak. As long as you're not publicly identifying a specific employee, you can pretty much say whatever you want as long as you're civil. But I really get the sense it falls on deaf ears. But there is a portion of the meetings where the board members have an opportunity to comment, and I would take that opportunity to echo and acknowledge the things that I've heard and the things that especially the things that I support, and really kind of, lack of a better word, shame the rest of the board that, hey, you're completely, you're sitting here looking at the people, but it's not sinking in, it's not registering.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett. Let's give him a hand. Now I'm going to reach in. We're going to start the Marysville crew. We'll just mix this up. I won't look, and we'll see who comes out first. I think I just picked Connor. Look at that right there. Would you welcome Connor Krebs? Mike's live up there.
Is this on? Okay. Do I need to use this? Can you hear me?
We're broadcasting live.
Oh, we're broadcasting. Well, I'll use it.
So we're live streaming.
Yeah. A lot of great questions.
You could take it with you if you want to walk around, if that's the issue.
No, that's all right. That's all right. You guys have asked a lot of great questions. I've actually written some down because I want to reference them. And thanks, Brett, for coming up here and speaking. And then kind of prodding those questions too. So a couple of the questions I guess I'll give a background of myself. Born and raised in Dallas, Texas, till I was 18 years old. Joined the U.S. Navy, which ultimately brought me here after 6 years, thanks. And planned to move back to Texas when I got done with my 6 years. Me and my wife had a daughter the month that I got out, and so we didn't want to do a lot of moving. And it gets harder and harder to move when my daughter makes more and more friends here in Marysville, and when me and my wife make more and more friends. And we go to North Shore Christian Church, and we're blessed with the community that we have there, and just the resources that we have. So that makes it hard to move. And with that said, this might be a permanent place for us. And so my time in the military has taught me to be proactive rather than reactive. It's easier on me to be proactive. And so that's the biggest reason why I'm running for Marysville School Board. I want to make sure that my daughter has the best possible chances to success afterwards if she goes through the public schools here. So I really want to clean up the act. From what I've seen in the past 3 years of living here, it's not been pretty. As you can see from the numbers, statistically, I don't want my daughter to have a 50 to, Wade knows the numbers more than I do, but a 50 to 70% chance of being proficient at math and reading, the basic education that school boards or schools should be teaching. I always say that the primary principle of a public school is to equip our children with the knowledge and tools that they need to be successful when they become adults and free and independent of government aid. And be able to be independent if they choose to be. And if we're paying for something that doesn't push our kids towards that goal, then we need to take a serious look at what we're paying for in that sense. If we're teaching our kids the opposite of what we should be teaching, critical race theory, teaching our kids to hate or to have preconceived notions of somebody based on their skin color is not what we should be teaching our kids. I went to public school and of course, I've been told by numerous people that this holds no bearing on my thought on the whole race issue, but I went to public school in Oak Cliff, Dallas, Texas. Me and my brother were the only two white kids in the school, primarily Hispanic and black individuals. And we had, we had many great friends, but we also had our times where we were shoved into lockers. We were eating lunch by ourselves. We were, not picked to play with during recess and as early as kindergarten. That didn't stop us from making great friends who were just characteristically great people. And so after 10 years of going to school there, public school there, I moved to Granbury, Texas, which was the complete opposite. There was 2 black kids in the school and 5 Hispanic kids, one of which I've been dating for 11 years and married for 5 years now, 6 years now, right? Maybe that's all I knew growing up in Dallas, but and I've been called a racist on numerous accounts. And why have I been called racist? Because I don't agree with critical race theory. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't agree with the fact that we should have preconceived notions of who somebody is because of what they look like. So that's my critical race theory speech. I'll get that out of the way. If you have questions, I'll be sure to answer. But how much time do I have? A minute? Okay. Another question that I heard, what was your name? Molly had a great question about where funding is going, and she brought up the point that is the most important priority when we take a look at the money that we're spending is the kids, because ultimately there's no other purpose of a public school than to cater to our kids. So when you hear words like constituents, when you hear words like teachers unions and stuff like that, it gets a bad rep. I have nothing against. I think the concept of a union is great because it protects the teachers, and it's a higher entity that fights for the teachers to get higher wages. That's a great concept. But I don't like when that leads to corruption, when that leads to persuasion. Raise your hand if you're a taxpayer in Marysville or Lake Stevens. Right, so you are the constituents, right? Not somebody from Olympia. They don't pay taxes in Marysville. They don't pay for this public school. Not somebody from Washington, D.C. That's where the NEA's right headquartered at. A lot of the NEA stuff flows down to the Marysville area. They don't pay these taxes. They don't get to say what our kids are being taught. We do as taxpayers. Without us, there would not be a public school here, right? There's no need for a public school if we don't have taxpayers. I think that's the end.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if you have any questions.
Questions, yeah.
Yeah, feel free.
Anybody got a question for Connor?
Comments, concerns.
So over the last summer, I've been trying to find a place on the website of the school board that shows the curriculum. You can't find the curriculum. You can't find a required reading list. How can you make that more transparent for the parents?
I love that question. So they just redid their website. They just redid their app. And it's even worse than it was before. I mean, I tried to find a school board meeting one time, and I had to text Wade to send me the link because I couldn't even find a school board meeting. And I always say, you hear, transparency, that word a lot. Transparency. We're transparent because we have links somewhere. You can find them somewhere, so we're transparent. But transparency is never enough. I mean, active transparency from the board is what the community deserves. I shouldn't have to sift through 13 different links to find what I need to find. I've got curriculum. I shouldn't have 30 days to review. I shouldn't only be allotted 30 days to review sexual education curriculum for my kids. There are parents who work double shifts. There are single moms who don't have any time in the world, let alone 5 minutes every day for 30 days to review a curriculum that's a whole semester long. 30 days is not enough to review a curriculum. And it's not that you get 30 days before the vote. It's that you get 30 days before they log you out and you're not even able to view it. And I think that's ridiculous, but because we pay for it. We pay for that curriculum. We should be able to see it. And making stuff like curriculum and making schedules and making policies, all that stuff more visual, more easily accessible to the public, where I should have to go, I should be able to go onto Marysville ISD or Marysville School District 25 and click one link, policies, and get to policies. I should be able to click, when's the next board meeting? One link and get to the board meetings. How can I contact this person? One link and get to that. So I think that's extremely important. I don't like technology. I'm not really good at technology, so anything to make it easier is nice. Thank you for that question.
So my question is about special education. What do you know about it and the needs of the kids in our school district?
Yeah. My mom is a special needs assistant in Granbury, Texas. And so she's not a teacher. She has 2 to 3 individuals that she follows to their different classes, and there's definitely a need for it. And Ray can talk more about it than I can because he's super knowledgeable on it. But there's definitely a need, and it seems like every 5 to 10 years, more and more kids are getting diagnosed with some sort of disorder that inhibits their learning. I got diagnosed with ADHD last year when I was 25. Never knew it when I was a kid, right? Because I wasn't bouncing off of the walls. Regardless of your condition, if you have special needs, if you need special attention in some sort of area, I think it's important that everybody receives or is, you always hear this term equity, and it's always related to race, but I don't see it that way. I see it as far as income or ability to learn, right? I think equity is a good thing when you put it in those situations. These kids can't afford, nowadays it seems like every kid has is issued a laptop at school. These kids don't have Wi-Fi, so they can't use the laptop. What are we doing to help them achieve what they need to achieve? These kids have learning disabilities, and we're not providing the things that they need to be able to excel at the same level as these other kids that don't have those, disabilities. And so just really understanding where people are in their learning stage, where they are economically, what their home life is like, I think is extremely important.
So one thing I was going to say, based on somebody who was talking about the curriculum, there are a couple of things that are under curriculum on the Marysville School District page. I've looked at it a lot. But they do not tell you the whole story, because I know they have the flash curriculum for sex education. And I know from one time going down to Olympia to complain and argue and try to fight over not going through with those things.
Thank you for that.
That it allows kids to question things and to go online and see pornography.
Yeah.
And that is not something that the teachers don't let the parents know, and it should not be.
Yeah, I agree. If your child has to go on or gets the opportunity to go on a field trip, what do you have to do as a parent? Can anybody answer that? You got to sign. Yeah, you got to say, my child is I give my child permission to go on this field trip. So for sex ed, why does the parent have to say, no, I don't want my child to go through sex ed? I mean, it's the same thing. If you're a single mom, you've got 2 jobs. You don't have to, maybe you don't see that letter that comes in the mail. Maybe you don't see that email saying, hey, if you want to opt your child out, you can opt your child out. Why is it an opt-out? Why is sex ed an opt-out function in Marysville and not I want to opt my child into this? I think if you're teaching kids, I always say this. Think about your child is on a playground with kids, and there's a stranger that walks up and says, hey, do you, there's no kids here. Hey, do you know what masturbation is? Do you know what it means when you are aroused? Or do you know how, it feels good? That individual would be taken to jail, and he'd be booked for, pedophilia. He'd be labeled a sex offender for almost the rest of his life. There's no difference in taking that scenario in the playground, putting 4 walls around it and calling it a classroom and teaching our kids the same thing. So I'm completely against anything related to sex ed to begin with. I never got it, and I stayed abstinent until I was married. And so I didn't need that. I didn't need to be taught that to know the difference between right and wrong. So, yeah, I guess that's my... Did that answer your question at all? Yeah, go ahead.
We want to do questions. We want to get questions from the, rather than just comments. We have time later on.
We can talk after you.
Yeah. Question? Okay, thank you.
How do you view the bond efforts and the district's maintenance and construction needs?
Yeah, bond, maintenance, construction. So where there is an actual need in a school, we should be focused on. If there's if we've got a school that has a couple cracks in the wood floor in the gymnasium, but we have another school that has asbestos in the ceiling, we've got to prioritize what if we can take that lump sum of money that we have that goes towards maintenance, we've got to figure out a prioritization school by school. If we put Band-Aids on every school at the same time, it's not going to do anything because more cracks are going to arise on every school at the same time. But if we can focus on one school that needs it the most and focus our efforts there to get that school up to standards and up to par, because they have it that school has it worse off than this other school that has a crack in the floor, then that's what we need to focus on. And once that school is up and meets the standards that our kids deserve at a school that they go to, then we can start looking at the next school that we need to bump up to that standard, and then the next school that we need to bump up to that standard. But I think the problem with Marysville is we are looking at all schools as a whole, and we're putting Band-Aids on all schools at the same time, and then more cracks arise, and then we're trying to patch those issues all at the same time. And it's a never-ending spiral, I think, if we focus on one school. Mm-hmm.
Hang on there. Hang on. We wanted to use a mic, and I got one right back here.
Hi. I've got a question about the schools and the fact that we keep building all these houses. What's the plan to house all these kids that are moving into the area?
School board wouldn't control like housing or anything like that, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what.
I think his question is more about what are you going to do for providing room or space, classroom space. Yeah.
Oh, classroom space. Okay. Yeah, and I think we need to take a serious look at what the numbers are. I mean, we've got to provide. If a kid wants to go to public school, they should be able to go to public school, and we shouldn't have to, force them into a closet just to go to public school. If there's a child that wants to go to public school and is enrolled in public school, we're going to make sure that there's enough space for that child. And I think that takes priority, right? Because the whole purpose of a public school is to be able to provide these kids with the tools and education that they need to be able to be successful when they're adults. And so that's always going to take priority if I get elected.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Hey, speaking on your comments about funding, we're locally funded.
Right.
Do you know how much of the school board budget is actually locally funded?
Well, I know as far as levies and other than that, the 13, I think it's 13,000, 13 to 15,000 that each child will receive from the state. And then, of course, there's federal allowance. Do you have a question right now, or can you? Well, I haven't been in well, obviously I didn't attend Marysville school, but I've been into and to the school buildings, correct, yeah. Is that a qualification to run for school board? Of course I have. Do you have any reservations about that? Do you assume I haven't, or?
Any other,
I just have
one last question, and we'll move on.
What, do you have a concern? Okay. Just wondering.
I had 3 kids, and they all graduated in Marysville. And at that time, downtown just kept growing and growing and growing. And I don't know how many superintendents we bought out contracts, just year after year. How much does our superintendent make? And do we still have assistant superintendents? And how many do we have? Because I think it was like 4 or 5 when my kids graduated, like in 2000. And
Yeah.
it just seemed a lot of money's downtown. And I don't know if this gal is insinuating, I'm kind of embarrassed of our schools in Marysville.
Right.
You go to other places and, you don't need the Taj Mahal. That's something, too, I've never understood at Marysville. Why can't we get a school building that works?
Right.
Why do we have, who knows the architect, who's related? Why do we spend all this money over and over?
Right. Yeah, it's not what the building looks like, it's what the building provides, right? But I think it is important that the kids are in a building that's safe, right? Because that's our first even before education, our first priority is the safety of the kids. We can't have cracks that have leaks that cause damage on a roof that could collapse on a child. So that's primary. Taj Mahal, no, we don't need something special that has curbside appeal. That's not the point of a school. But spending money to ensure our kids are safe, I think that's very important. And I can't speak to all the way back in the early 2000s of how many assistant superintendents there were, but I know that there are assistants of assistants of assistants in Marysville that we don't need to pay for, that money can go towards something better. So, yeah, if we have an assistant superintendent, their job is to assist the superintendent. Why does the assistant superintendent need an assistant? That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know if that was your question or not, but I agree. We don't. If there's a position that doesn't need to be filled, that money can go somewhere else. I don't know what he earns. No, I know we have an acting superintendent right now. So our actual superintendent is on leave. And I don't know what he makes, but Chris isn't our acting superintendent. So he's not the superintendent that was chosen by the board.
We'll get some more time for questions for any other of the candidates. We want to be fair in our in our time, so we're going to move on. Thank you, Connor. Let's
Thank
give
you.
Connor
Yeah,
a hand for. All right. 50-50 chance, right? Kira, come on up. Let's give Kira a hand as she comes.
I'm short, I think, compared to you guys.
Oh, you didn't sound.
My name's Kiera, actually, and I was recently this summer appointed to the board. I had to apply. I don't think it was a great application process. I was the only one that applied, so I'm not sure they had much of a choice. I'm sure they're not happy about the decision now. But I am here. I have 3 children in the district. They're 14, 11, and 4. We have been in this district since they were in kindergarten, my oldest. So we've lived in Marysville for 15 years. I went to Lakewood High School for 4 of those years, and I grew up in Skagit County as a child. Kindergarten through 8th grade, I went to Lucille Umbarger. As I'm going to get emotional, I think. But as we have evolved into my whole goal in being on the school board was to ensure that our children get an education. There is so much going on in the world right now, and us as adults are, fighting over this or that, or what side we're on, or what color we are, and I'm half Hispanic. My children are Hispanic, and I don't want to see what we're doing and focusing on right now. I feel like our children are losing because we're over here arguing and fighting about what's best. Who's the best? Who needs this? Who needs that? As adults, what do our children need? And we're losing that. And for me, that's why I'm here, to make sure that my children get the best education that they can. And I have a lot of solid views on things, and they're probably, not the most progressive sometimes. But I understand that we need equity, and we need to teach our children kindness, and we need to teach our children to be, not judge people of the color of their skin, and not, I have a big thing with equity, and obviously a lot of you have seen it and heard it, and my opinions on that. And I believe that we need equity in the district. I believe that we need to teach our children, our history and embrace our cultures. We're a diverse community. We have the tribal community, the tribal nation, and we have high Hispanic, Asian, all different races within our district. We're just diverse, and we need to embrace all of that and figure out how to give each child the tools they need to succeed, and that's important because we want our children to succeed and get a good education. And that may mean different things to some people, but ultimately academics needs to be the baseline and the priority in that. Because without academics, you're not going to be able to go and get a job. You can have all the feelings and we can talk about all the things, and our mental health is very important for our children. And currently in the district, yes, we have a lot of overhead that maybe isn't always needed. We need to evaluate that and we need to bring it down. The superintendent is paid highly, and there is a lot of turnover within our district. Right now we have a lot of young executive leaders that need some help and direction. And we need to ensure we're implementing these policies and they're fulfilling what we as a board want. Nobody in the district right now is sitting there going, and I did this because I was tired of all the noise, right? It's all this is happening, the sex education, and as much as we want to talk about the pornography and that, not a single thing like that has come across my desk. And if it did, I'd say something. There's been questionable things that I don't really agree with in a setting for children, whether it's age appropriate or not. I don't agree with it. Yes, it should be taught at home, but unfortunately that's not the case. People aren't teaching their children where they can go to talk to be safe, where they can go, who they need to have those people to go to and speak to and say, hey, if this is happening to you, this is wrong. Here's your safe place. Here's your safe people to talk to. If it's not at home, because it could not be at home potentially, that's important to teach them that. And how we do that needs to probably change. We need to make sure that it's appropriate. And we need to give the parents the chance to do that themselves. And it should be, if it's an elective. Maybe elect to have your child there. But then you have the parents that don't care and don't pay attention, so they don't elect, but maybe they need it. I do agree that we need some mental health in the schools. We need some more counselors. I remember growing up, I had a great counselor. I grew up in it was a tough environment. My parents worked all the time. I babysat my little brothers. You know, we need support somewhere, and I had that. So hopefully we can all come together and find a middle ground for our children. That's my goal, and to provide them an education.
Excellent. Questions? Clear in the back, of course. Get my jogging in, right?
Hey, do you know what the student count is per class, say in elementary school, junior high, and then high school?
Yeah, we tried to set that. The budget was set for 25. I haven't seen what it currently is. We did actually have more children than we expected. Our last meeting, that was yesterday actually, we presented this during our work study, and I encourage everyone to go to the work studies and see what we're actually doing on the board. That's really important stuff. You can actually see all the questions that come about why we're going to mask our children, why we're going to do those things come during the work study. But yesterday we did present our numbers for school starting, and we budgeted for about 400 less, and we have about 500 more than that. So I'm assuming we didn't take very much account for all the houses that were just built, right? But there's a lot of people pulling their children from school and homeschooling, or whether it's for COVID, or whether it's for, they don't want their kid to wear masks, or they're afraid their child will get sick, which is, you have some people in the community that are vulnerable. But we do have, we budgeted for 25 for the younger kids, is what it was. I didn't see anything more than 25 to 27.
I kind of go blank when you do that.
Yeah.
So it's in flux, and you really don't have a number average. I know you say 25, but
I don't specifically know currently.
My experience as a parent, as a grandparent, there's always way more. And I understand we're in unprecedented times right now. How are you guys going to handle the kids that refuse to get the injection? Are they going to be able to have access to public education, say like online, like they did last year? Or are you just going to cut them off?
Per the Constitution, we are to provide every child an education. And I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that's what I will do. How I will do that, I don't know yet. I also have other members of the board. We will all make that decision. Hopefully we'll get people on the board that can determine that. I sure hope that we will be able to publicly educate our children who are not vaccinated.
Mine is really easy. I live in Marysville. My daughter graduated from Marysville Pilchuck High School in '98. But I'm just curious, you said that you were appointed to the board, so you
There was a vacant seat.
There was a vacancy, so somebody resigned?
Yes.
And so you have to run for that position?
So, yes. So now I'm currently running. I didn't fill that in, but I'm running as a write-in. I filed too late. I didn't know the deadline to file. I had already applied for the position, not realizing I was going to have to run as well. So I misread how many years was up. I thought there were still 3. I didn't know it was the end of this year. So I ended up having to file as a write-in. I have done that, so write-in Kira Atchley for District 3 in Marysville, that's me. But yeah, so someone resigned, and I will only take the seat up until December unless I'm voted in. District 3 in Marysville. No, actually I don't. There is someone else that will be on the ballot. Her name is Susan, I don't remember her name, but she has withdrew her candidacy. So if I don't get all of the votes and everyone votes for her, then I will be appointed. I will be able to be reappointed in January.
So someone said, I don't know if it was Connor, but you said that we just have an acting superintendent?
Yes, we
And
currently
why
have an
is-
acting superintendent.
Why is that?
He withdrew due to personal, he took a medical leave of absence, a leave of absence. And so currently, Chris is acting superintendent. He was the director, or deputy superintendent previously. Yeah. There's been a lot of turnover. We got to stabilize the district and make sure they have support from the board. There's been a lot of controversial things that have happened that need to be addressed. And I expect that that will happen soon. More transparency to the community. And that's what I plan to do as well, is be transparent, take everyone's opinions as a whole within this district.
Yeah, I've been to several of the board meetings. I've also come early to be involved in the work studies. I don't know how many times I was told you can't be here in the work study, it's a closed meeting. How are you going to address that?
There are some work studies that we have to have sessions for that are not actually open to the public. So you got to read very closely when there is a work study what it says. Like down in the curriculum, it always has all the letters, right? Presentation, this and that, and then at the end it'll just say closed session. So when there's an employee issue or there is a discussion about, you know, a situation that happened with children within the district, that's private, right? We can't openly have a meeting about that. So we have those work studies and special session meetings to do that. So we've had a lot of those with school starting. There's been a lot of bargaining with the unions. We finally, as you saw yesterday, the meeting before last, we were able to come to an agreement. Those are the things that we can't publicly do, the bargaining and all of that while we're working.
So I'm hearing you say if there's confidential information that has
Confidential
to be
information,
discussed, you're going to do that like in executive session.
Yeah, there's executive sessions and there's some work studies that are closed sessions.
Okay. Otherwise, would you use that as a tool just to get things done, or would you always keep them open to the public when you can?
When we can, they should always be open to the public.
Follow up?
Yeah, the one meeting that I was very upset I wasn't able to be in was the community equity building or meeting. They told me that was a closed session. Why is that not open to the public? It's part of the community.
Yes, I agree. I am not sure why it's not. I believe they have to allow any public person to be a part of those meetings. Whether you're on the committee or not is another story. Maybe it had to do with COVID, their requirements. I am not sure, but that is something that, you know, should be available to everyone. And we could address that at the time.
Any other questions at this time? All right, we'll reach in. Thank you, Karen. And I'll reach in here, and Mr. Sheldon, I had a reserved spot for me, he didn't sit in it, so I didn't realize he snuck up behind me. And let's give him a hand as he comes.
Of course, my name is Ray Sheldon. A little bit more about myself. I started in Tulalip Elementary as a kindergartner, moved to Liberty, and everyone knows where Liberty is. Then moved to Pinewood Elementary, and I went to Marysville Middle School. Then I went into the Pilchuck, well, now it's called Marysville Pilchuck, but that's okay, I won't hold that against them. But I went there for my junior high in high school, and then in '75 they converted it to 2 high schools because it had just was feasible. We couldn't pass levies in the '70s, which we can't do now. So that's where I finished. I've been here maybe for forever, except maybe 4 years. I am also tribal member. I'm sure my gray, some of the black will show through the gray and show you that it's still there. And I've been on the Tribal Utilities Commission for years and been on the Tribal Planning Commission and still going and chair for that commission. And also I am on the Snohomish County Planning Commission. So, and also, my daughter will remind me, I've been also on the Tribal Parent Committee meeting, a member, and also the special needs during the school district meetings. And I'm still be able to get 4 rounds of, these 18 holes of golf in every day. So my wife doesn't see much of me, and she's very happy when it rains, and I'll tell her, I got a rain jacket, so bye. I have been hanging around the school board room for 7 years. I tried 4 years ago and didn't make it. And I enjoyed with some of you making the comments. I hope that sometimes I feel I didn't make it the last time because I'm Native. And it sounds like a lot of you are open mind in this. Reason why I enjoy going to the board meetings, my daughter let me know that they needed help and need input, so I would go there and input. It gets to the point they kind of didn't like me coming in for a while and figure out that I had things to say. But for Connor, he's my opponent, but I want you to understand that we're just running for District 1, but you all can vote for all the districts. Keep that in mind, because you don't have to vote for, when you get the ballot, just vote for one. You get a chance to vote for them all. But I've been around in District 1, has been held by a very good guy for many years, and I think he just got tired of me and decided to just jump out of it real quick. But I really love this job. As you know, I'm 64, and you're thinking, wow, why don't you retire and do something? But I just didn't like to watch General Hospital in the evening, so I figured I could do something else. You know, it's a darn thing they invented recorders and watch those things, and I figure, okay. And it is twice a month, and it's exciting. Changes have to come, so I know you have a lot of questions, but this is mostly just about myself, and I just hope that you all understand that this is what I do.
Awesome, thank you. Questions? Who's got the first question?
So what do you see as what is most needed in Marysville School District?
The thing wants to keep slipping. Our view is we have to change our view of what we want our children. And I shouldn't say children, it's students. We have to get out of the 200 rating and push ourselves up to higher rating. Maybe one day the goal is maybe to be the top 50 or top 20 school in the state. And we could do this. But it doesn't just take me to do it. It takes all of us to do those things. As I would say, I'm a very good listener. I'm not going to go in there and sit there and vote what I feel. I'm going to listen to everyone and figure what they say. You know, if it was true, I wouldn't be going on 45 years of marriage if I did everything my way, right? So I've had to sit back, go with the flow, take your input. Okay, that's what we're going to eat. So I just want you to make to understand that's what we need and goal, and we can't just do it with just 5 people. It takes all of us as a community.
What have you done as a resident in the schools before becoming a candidate?
I've really worked on special needs kids and everything. In other cases, I'm sort of an advocate. If they don't go anywhere, they usually call my daughter, email me, would I go to the school and help them, help their child get more help. And there's nothing placed as when you walk in or send this email to the superintendent saying, hey, I want to come in and visit, and you're sitting there, okay, it's a half a day and you resend it, then he makes it clear as a clown, sure, come in. And this is what I do. I enjoyed it, and helping students get where they want to go is really important. I'm just avid with it. I'm not sure if anyone knows my past or anything else. I coached baseball, soccer, basketball in this community for 25 years. And I just went crazy not doing anything. So my daughter started helping at the school, and next thing I started helping. One thing I didn't say anything about myself, I have 5 grandchildren, 3 with special needs. So that's a big weight that I like to carry, and hopefully we can solve.
Another question, somebody? What kind of, I've got a whole page of questions, so if you're not going to ask questions, I'm going to ask some questions. Do you believe that there should be a commitment to sharing yearly the major ways you as a board member evaluate the districts and individual schools' process? What would that look like?
I'm not sure if anyone knows that you can go to the State of Education and look on their website to see where we qualify and how many kids we have that are on the free lunch program and everything else. You go to those things, and besides looking for golf attire, I'm constantly going through there and asking, why are we doing this? And why we should be doing that? You know, I'm not sure everyone understands, but our free lunch program, it says 50% of our students. And we're not lucky like Stevens and be between 20 and 25. We wished we could be there, but we have a hard time income-wise that these other kids have not reached or be able to afford lunches themselves. And I'm sure you probably already heard this number. We've had over about 300 homeless students, and it bothers me. And because we need to do something. And like I said before, it takes all of us. I hate to use the term, it takes a tribe to raise a child. And I think it takes twice as that of everyone to help to raise that child to be able to move on in life. What you learn in school and everything else carries the rest of your life. Education is important. I've heard that a lot from my grandmother and my grandfather. Education is important.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hello. I just want to commend you and your family for what you've done for the kids in this community, and not just for special needs, but all kids, and I think that's really commendable.
We do so much. I'm not sure. We do a lot for the Girls and Boys Club. And we do buy a lot of things for the students in the schools, sponsor this and that. I'm not here to really pat myself on the back, because it takes my wife and I a sacrifice to do those things. You know, as most of you have heard, you can't take it with you, but sometimes we really try, but we do donate a lot, and we're proud of doing that.
Well, we thank you for it. I do have a question for
Sure.
you and for the other candidates for Marysville, and that's that, you know, there's no big secret that there's a big disconnect between the community and the school board in the city. And my question for you guys is, what are you going to do to kind of repair that? I feel part of why that disconnect is and why levies are not passing. For me, part of what I have a problem is looking at the district's budget and seeing how money is spent and then asking taxpayers to just keep funding. For example, $100,000 for a travel budget.
Mm-hmm.
Would you commit, if you were elected, that you will try to cut some of that spending?
It used to be worse. It used to be $250,000, and they dropped it back down. Because I have always asked why. Why don't we look in the future? Why don't we team up with other school districts that are willing to share someone that comes in and helps teach everyone locally, instead of sending somewhere to California, take on a class how to get along with students, and you're scratching your head. But that's what we need to do. And sometimes it's hard to get a hold of board members, but for some reason I can always find out because I know where they hide. So that's where I was able to bother them the most.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, I had one more question for myself.
Okay.
Special education, we have a lot. On the tribe, this is for Connor to know that there's over 800 and change in tribal native students in our school district. There's 600 and change of Tulalip tribe. Half are in the special education program. And if you're a coach or something of any court, anything, to make yourself a good team, you have to work on the people that are down here. Because these people up here are always going to be there and they're going to thrive and push themselves. We got to rise these people up to help. And the other thing that bothers me with special education, we kind of give up on these kids when they're in 3rd or 4th grade. We figure, okay, they can't learn anymore, we're done. Then we push them to a side. And I always did this last meeting. How many people know kids with special needs or have someone in their families? Anyone could raise their hand? Quite a few. We need every kid with special needs. Hey, you give them your phone, you leave your phone down, they get by your password in 5 seconds. And you swear you think you got it done, but they still get through it. Some of them are so brilliant, and we're not willing to work with these kids to push them higher and harder. Sometimes tough love is hard, but sometimes these kids can do it. If you let them go away and hide the corner, they'll stay that way. And the sad thing about the mother and father will sit back and worry what's going to happen to Sally or Brian when they get old. Where are they going to go? So our first thing is to sit back and work on these kids so they can be able to take care of themselves in time, but it's not going to happen overnight. So I just wanted to say that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And
All right.
My one question is, well, I know my wife is not listening because she's not computer literate.
Don't get yourself in trouble now.
Don't tell her I took off my mask, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, our last candidate before we, before we wrap up and do just general Q&A is Wade Reinhardt. So would you welcome Wade as he comes?
Oh. Get that a little higher up here. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Again, Wade Reinhardt. I'm running for position number 4 in the Marysville School District. Let's just start off with Marysville is not going to get the same with me. I'm not an insider. I'm a father of 2 kids, beautiful kids. They've been in the school district here for about 5 years now. I'm a businessman. I'm a coach. I've been coaching for the Boys and Girls Club for coming up on my 11th season here. I've been trying to retire, but the parents just won't let me. And Kiara aside, she's not included in this. I will not be doing what you're used to seeing our board do. Our board needs to have directors that are going to ask the tough questions, that are going to push back on what's coming from, sometimes from the administration, but also from Olympia. I've heard many people claiming that they know a lot about leadership. I'm not sure they know really what that is. Leadership is a position for somebody who has earned their stripes through hard work. A person who no longer is looking for personal glory. A leader is a servant that is focused on enabling the greater good for those that count on them. You don't know me from Adam, but at this point, trust me, I've earned those stripes. And at this point, I could care less about anything other than making sure that our children have the education they need. We need people on the board that's going to stand strong. Stand strong for our students, families, parents, and our community. It's our job as parents and families to teach our children our values, our deep-seated values that we hold dear. It is not the school's job to do that. Okay? It's not the board's job. It's not the district's job. It's our job, parents and families, to teach our deep-seated values to our children. I'm not talking the values of don't talk while an adult is talking. Stuff like our deep-seated values. And it's different for every family. As such, I don't support CRT. This curriculum has the capability to divide our students, depending on how it's taught. I can't get behind any curriculum that has the possibility to impact the self-worth of just one of our students. It's not okay. We need to acknowledge that our minority population acknowledge the hardships that they have, that they've had, what they're going through. That's really important, but we can find better tools to teach our histories in an unbiased way. Sex education, we've talked a little bit about that. Our younger children, our kindergartners, they don't need to be learning about parts. How about we let them learn how to interact with each other, how to play on the playground with each other, developing relationships with each other. We can teach them, more complex topics later in their education when they can understand those topics. How about we let them be kids for a little while longer? Big problem, we find out about some of this curriculum too late. It's a problem when we're hearing about these classes at the dinner table. you know, I'll immediately, and this addresses some of your questions that have come through, and they've all been really good questions, by the way. Work to create a forum outside of the school board. You know, you're talking about, well, how can the community talk to the board? Well, you don't talk to the board in a board meeting. You could talk at the board, but the board does not talk back to you. That's part of the procedure, parliamentary procedure. I think monthly, perhaps quarterly, it might be a good idea to have a forum coffee with the board. But here's the rub. The board gets to ask questions back, okay? But it's this type of open dialogue that lets everybody see all sides of an issue to understand where people are coming from, where empathy comes in. It's time to start teaching our kids how to think, not what to think. They need to know that America is awesome. Nowhere else can you be or do anything you want if you have the desire. It just takes hard work and never letting go of your dream. I love my country. I'll fight for it to be a good place for our children to learn with zero apologies. I love this county. I love this city, these cities. I don't believe that our administrations, our boards, our councils, our business owners, our city leaders are systemically racist. Let's not teach our kids to believe that either. You know, we need to bring foundational learning back to the forefront, kind of what Kiera was saying as well. If we do our jobs right now, our children will be able to do their jobs right later when we need it. So please consider voting for me. Wade Reinhardt, Marysville School Board, seat number 4.
Questions? Who's going to be first? Come on, break the ice. I know somebody's got a question out there. Okay.
A lot of questions have been asked and a lot of questions have been answered, so I get it.
Okay, so I'm in the military, and there's a lot of
Thank you.
military families in Marysville and Lake Stevens. What type of funding are you having towards helping those kids? Because a lot of the time the parents or both parents are deployed, and so they're a single family home in the military because one of the family members is gone. What type of programs do the school districts in Marysville and Lake Stevens, or jointly, do you guys have to support those students and those kids?
So I wouldn't be familiar with any programs specific to the military, but that would also fall under into the bucket of, say, perhaps low income, right? Children that need a little bit extra help because there isn't a support at home. You know, again, this has been mentioned before, that equity is a good thing. It's a really good thing. It's not a good thing when you spin it so that it's focused directly on one section of the children that need help. So, you know, my goal is that I get the intersectionality of, you know, minorities or people with needs having other needs at the same time. And that could be military kids and low income at the same time, right? We need to make sure that every child hits the finish line at the same time as their peers. And that means putting the resources in place, whether it's special needs, whether it's low income, whether it's learning disabilities, whether it's physical disabilities. There needs to be specialists, counselors, the resources in place to support those children as they proceed so that they hit that finish line, they get that diploma and shake that hand at the same time as their peers.
Another question? Somebody? Oh, okay.
I truly commend you on how you stand up there and what you're delivering. I am concerned is how are you going to take this fight back to them, right? On fighting for our children, fighting for what we believe here. And you're going to be up against a tidal wave, right?
Yes,
ma'am. And they're going to
ma'am.
come after you.
Yes, ma'am. They already
Right?
have.
And I feel
They
this,
already
and I feel
have.
this from you guys. What do we need to do to support you up there?
So here's a little secret. And it shouldn't be a secret, but it is. A lot of people don't understand this. The board approves policy. Where does the policy come from? Committees. Who makes up the committees? Committees are made up of administrators, they're made up of teachers, they're made up of specialists, sometimes consultants, but the biggest part, the biggest component is they're made up of the community. By law, everybody in this community has the right to be on a committee. If the committee's full, they still have the right to sit in and listen to that committee. So right now, on a lot of these committees, they're very one-sided, people with agendas, right? We need to get more parents volunteering, walking into the administration building and saying, I would like a list of all the committees that I can be on, that are in existence right now. I would like a list. Is it the equity committee? Is it the curriculum committee? If so, get on that committee. And then you are helping create that policy that goes before the board, that the board approves or disapproves. That's how we make change. Like Ray said, we can't do it alone. It takes all of us. And that's the missing component. Most people have no idea that they can walk into the administration building and get a list of the committees that they can be on, that they have interest with. That's the secret.
That's excellent.
Can you expand on how to help our students of color address the inequities they have continued to experience in this district?
That's a really good question.
There is a gap between achievements in children in this district of color and the average.
Right. And that comes down into, I mentioned intersectionality before, and that is one of the tenets of CRT, where you have color combined with one other thing, whether it's low income or whatnot. So where are you going to focus your efforts? Are you going to focus directly on the color, or are you going to focus on the low income? And that's a tough place to be, because it's an area that is very hot politically. It's an area that is tough for Marysville, because we've been suffering for a long while. So to answer your question, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of input from the community to go before the board and make sure that we have the right resources in place.
You keep mentioning equality, intersectionality, and critical race theory.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious why you think that, like, college coursework, critical race theory is applied and put on children.
So right now, it's come down from our superintendent for Washington State that it's not. And that's correct. It's not yet. But it is being taught to our teachers and our administrators. And that's what hasn't been said. There's an equity training going on right now. It's about 2 weeks that every administrator, every teacher, board member included, has to go through. And it's 100% race, and not focusing on the other parts of equity that are really important. You know, like the physical, the learning, all the other struggles that our children go through. We need to make sure that our focus isn't laser targeted here when we've got such a big area of concern here.
Do you think that maybe mentioning something that you admitted is not being taught to students, and you keep referencing that it is, much like the sexual education comments, do you think that might be inhibiting student success in any way?
Let's put it this way. If it's being taught to our teachers, what are they teaching? Right? So is it being taught to our kids? What's the next step? So yes, to answer your question, we got to keep our eyes open. We got to ask the tough questions, and we got to really watch what's coming in down from OSPE and what's coming down from the superintendent, Olympia, and really understanding what is the direction, where is this going, and what's the next step? Is the next step our children being taught parts? because that is happening at other places in the country, other places in the state. Are children being taught CRT? Absolutely, yes. That is happening. So what's the next step here? So we got to be diligent and watch out for what our children are being taught, and that's where these committees come in to play, the curriculum committees. That's where those policies are going to be placed, created and placed in front of the board.
Did you review the curriculum changes over the summer?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever foresee a time where a school board would just say no to the state superintendent?
I would like to, but a lot of, there's strings attached to that, right? There's legal strings, there's monetary strings. There are, threats right now where, some of the mandates coming down where masks or vaccines, if you don't participate in that, your funding will be pulled. So what do you do at that point? You close schools? You lay off teachers?
Mobilize parents.
You mobilize parents? These are all hypotheticals, but they are things that we really need to consider. They are indeed.
We're getting to that point of the hour where we probably need to bring all of the candidates back up and go for a free-for-all. Thank you, Wade.
You're welcome.
For your input. Give him a hand. Thank you. And I have this microphone up here. I have another microphone right here that's live. So who's got the next question for our candidates? Come on, let's just do a round robin, some tough questions.
Okay, so my main question for all of you guys is, I am very upset with the learning that is being not done in this district. I am a teacher, okay, I'm no longer, I lost my license at the end of, because I'm not working anymore, but I have been working. Phonics is what is needed. Phonics is not popular. But I gotta tell you, and as far as kids who are minorities, if they have a good teacher, they can excel. If they have a lousy teacher, they can't. And I can prove that to you because I have 2 granddaughters. Now you might go, oh yeah, but they're Caucasian. No, they're not. My daughter is adopted. Both my daughters are adopted. They're from India. My son-in-law, he was actually adopted also, but his birth mom was from Morocco. So they are half Indian, East Indian, and half black, whatever. Anyway, okay, African American, whatever you want to call it. Actually, he is from Africa, actually. So, anyway, these 2 kids, I told my daughter when the oldest one was young, I said, if we're going to go to Marysville School District, we're going to have to supplement it because I do not want them graduating with a Marysville education. Because I thought Edmond School District, where I used to substitute, was bad, but this one's worse. The thing is, so I have been working with my little ones. They are 5, just 3 days or 4 days now in kindergarten, and 7, and she's a young 7, and she's in 2nd grade. So my 2nd grader, well, she was doing 2nd grade work last year. I homeschooled her. She was doing 2nd grade work last year, but she's in the high cap program. My kindergartner, I figure she'll be in that high cap program because she is starting kindergarten and she's reading she was reading a 2nd grade book the last time. The question is, we need to get phonics into here, and I want to know what you're going to do to try to get it, because sight words is not helping any kid.
All right, who's going to take it? Got a mic there, mic there.
Guess I was handed the mic, so
okay,
I'll
go
take
for
it
it.
first.
And you got a question.
I'll stand up.
Jump up.
So that, I love your question, and that just goes back to, I guess, my original statement of the number one, the primary goal of a public school is to give our kids the tools they need. And if they're receiving something they don't need, that's not going to benefit them, that's not going to help them succeed on their own independently, that's the whole point. At some point, I want to be an empty nester with my wife, right? I want my child to be independent and self-sufficient. But she needs a good education to do that. If the school's not providing that, and we have data that proves that, with our reading, with our literacy rates and our proficiency in math rates, then something needs to change. And if phonics is that change, then that's what needs to happen. So I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah.
So right now, all I've seen is the requirements that come from OSPI, right? OSPI comes down and they give their guidelines. What has happened is we have just followed the guidelines from OSPI. And I don't know who's making all the money, but there's only certain curriculums that are available to purchase. And that's probably by design from whoever the state and whoever's sister owns that curriculum company, is how I feel. We're not being creative. We're not teaching anymore. We're just taking the curriculum and using it. And that's what we're doing. We're not coming up with our own curriculum. We're following the guidelines, and then here's a purchased curriculum, and we'll just throw it out there. We can come up with our own spreadsheets, our own process, and put them in there, but that takes work. And it would take work. I don't believe that there is a lot of work that goes into approving the curriculum and doing all of that, and I commend everyone that has to do that. But we don't have any creativity to it. So we need to push the people that are in those positions and on those committees and creating that curriculum to create it, not to just buy the only package that's available, or the 5. Because every time I've asked for one, I haven't seen any other options that were reviewed since I've been there. I've pulled curriculum, I've asked for documents, I've sat with the teams, and that's what anyone else can do. You can request the documents, you can sit with the teams, and I don't think that teachers don't want to teach. I don't think we're doing it because we think but that's what's available. Do we have time to sit there and create a whole curriculum right now? No. So the curriculums that are available, we got to pick one, and what one's best. And then we follow the one that we picked from 5 years ago to now, and maybe they're changing, but to fit into our current curriculum. And we just need to be more creative with that, and maybe pick and choose and more guide our current district on how we're going to teach that. There just needs to be more creativity in it. That's what I see. I don't think that, and that's the thing though, like I haven't seen anybody, nobody's trying to be like, oh, this lazy or being, I think it's just that's what's available and that's the guidance. Nobody's, oh, this is terrible curriculum, let's pick it. No, there's only certain curriculums you can pick, and that's it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to say thank you to Reset Church for hosting this.
We got another question coming.
Okay, so my question is for Brett. It's most relevant to me being in Lake Stevens School District as a Marysville resident. Let's see. I'm a single mom of 3 twice exceptional children. They are gifted and they also have challenges that make it difficult to learn. I am their biggest advocate. I have gone round and round with the school district. My question is, my middle child is dyslexic. She has auditory processing disorder, which is a other health impairment. It would qualify for an IEP. The specific learning disorder also qualifies for an IEP. Both were turned down. I've been through these processes. My other 2 kids are on IEPs, so I've tried all my avenues. The only thing they've offered is a 504 for specifically the auditory processing issues. At the time I got it for her, the district was going to start screening for dyslexia in younger grades, but at the time all they could offer was wired for reading, and they didn't have a specialist that could meet with her in the okay pull-out time. My question is, what should I do as a parent? I've been going to district level. I've been working with Miriam Tenkate. She's saved me with my oldest with his complications, but is this something that I should take to the school board about the dyslexia screening and actually having staff that can manage and help the students that have dyslexia, because it is a lot, it's almost as common as ADHD at this point. So tell me, is the school board where I need to go?
I think that would probably be a good place to start. Now, we're kind of getting into the weeds, and I know this is very important to you. The district does have an obligation to provide an education to your children. And if you have a 504, but the district cannot provide, cannot fulfill that, back when I was working for Seattle, there were instances where either an IEP or a 504, the district just couldn't handle it, and we had to either bring somebody else in from outside the district and pay for it, or we had to send that student elsewhere to get their needs met. So you need to keep fighting, you need to keep advocating, and yeah, I would suggest taking it to the board. I haven't been around long enough to quite have all the nuances down and tell you step by step what you need to do, but keep fighting.
Okay, and I have a second question. There's a rumor that the Lake Stevens teachers have been told to prepare for distance learning again as of October 4th, which I heard earlier is the deadline for submitting number of students. I mistakenly thought that it was coinciding with the very last date they could get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and be fully vaccinated by October 18th. Do you think, or I don't understand how OSPE can say that children are are entitled to in-person full-time education, and I've only heard it about Lake Stevens School District, but that it could possibly switch back to distance learning. Do you think that it would be due to the vaccination status or the student enrollment numbers? What's your best guess?
Yeah, it would be a guess. I don't know. I've heard that rumor as well. I haven't been able to substantiate it. I haven't heard that directly from any staff. So, but I have heard that as well. So, it's going to be tough to get through the next couple of weeks and find out where we're at. It could go either way, but it could be any number of things. It could be the declining enrollment. It could be that coupled with the panic over possibly losing staff that refuse to get vaccinated, and then there is the other side of the coin that there are people out there that don't think that enough is being done, and they're scared. They don't want to get sick. I think there's the data out there that the vast majority of people do recover if you don't have a comorbidity. But yeah, it is what it is, and it's going to be a stressful couple of weeks, but hopefully we'll find out soon.
Can I just convince you to not say people are refusing the vaccine, but they're declining it?
Fair point. Yeah. And I myself am in that category, and I said refuse, but yes, decline. And not to get in the weeds or get too personal, but I had COVID in November, and I recovered, and I've got antibodies, and with all the adverse side effects I've been hearing about, it's up to everybody. I don't fault anybody for, it's an individual choice. But for me personally, I had it, I recovered, I have antibodies. I don't want to take the risk of injecting what I still consider to be an experimental drug.
Thank you. Question? Oh, over here. All right. And if you have an idea who you want to ask, that would be great.
No, I don't. We used to have a Spalding program in Marysville that some parents we put together as a retrieval for junior high kids. And it was Allen Creek's total curriculum. They were 92 percentile for reading. And I know there was some flack because it made other schools look bad. So my question would be, do we still have Spalding in Marysville? We used to have a really strong sex ed policy that Coster was involved in, and we had state reps coming because of the way parents were handled in Marysville. We had teachers taking children and taking students off time to places you shouldn't be taking students without parent permission. All of that was pulled in through a strong sex ed policy, and I would ask, is that in existence anymore, or has that been gutted?
That's a Marysville question, so Anybody got that one? Kara, do you know anything about that? Or the Spalding program? You know a little bit? Okay.
So, let me just, can I rephrase your question and then see if I've rephrased it correctly? There used to be you called it Spalding. And it did great things as far as student learning, 94% testing. And so your first question was, or do we still have that? I don't know if Spalding is a thing in Marysville or not. If you look at if you're saying it was we were in the 94% achievement rate in Spalding, and you look at where we're at now, I would say we don't. I don't know if we have a program that's called Spalding, but I am interested to hear more about it. If you know, yeah, I would love to hear more about it because I think any program that achieves that level of success for our kids is important, and that information is important because if it works, you don't change something that works, right? You don't fix something that's not broken. And then as far as the sex ed, as far as strict policy on sex ed, are you talking about strict as far as what we teach our kids? This is...
That it left them in a bad position.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So it pulled it all together.
Right.
And I was just wondering, is it still in existence or no, when you guys are talking sex ed?
So there is a new sex ed curriculum that got passed over this summer. I don't know if you got the opportunity to read that curriculum. You mentioned that the last one was more or less it was more loose on the teachers and it wasn't structural. Okay, policy brought structure. And are you saying that made it better because there was a structure? Yeah, I'm finding out more and more every day that it seems like policy and structure is going on the wayside as far as things that people are allowed to do. If I could make myself more clear, we can put something in place, and we can make a policy. But now it seems like a lot of stuff is tailored towards, I've got these kids in this individual classroom, and so I have this curriculum that I'm going to teach these kids, and nobody besides these kids are going to know if my views are coming out of that teaching or not, whether or not a policy is set in place or not. So we can set policies and guidelines on what we teach our kids, but I think there also needs to be what is the recourse if that policy is broken? Our kids get disciplined in school. What's the discipline for the teachers or the staff if they go beyond those guidelines, policies? Accountability, right? What's the accountability for the teachers? And that's what I think we need to implement. If that accountability is not there and things are slipping through the cracks, people are navigating through the policies, then that needs to happen. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but Spalding, I do want to hear more about that.
Excellent. I think that's a great idea. I think we should, you got a response to that? What I want to do is give time tonight for just a little mixers, because some people don't really want to ask a question over a microphone, but you might want to have some personal aside time just to meet with a candidate and talk to them just face to face. And so I want to reserve a little bit of time tonight to do that before we get out of here, okay?
Great. Your answer for your question My wife and I really loved that back in the day. We don't know where it went. Even though we went through the sight words with our kids, we still went through the function of sounding everything out. And I think a lot of parents and grandparents will still do it. But, you know, the sight words, they still stutter a little bit. Then we have to say, ch, and to work the word out. Your question over here was, yes, some things, curricular really changes between, like I said, you need to go to the superintendent, Washington superintendent grades and go over it, and it tells you what each school is doing and how well they do. I want to be able to say, and we do, I'm a portion of, I am on Leah's Dream, and Leah's Dream has bought in curriculum for the special education kids. So they are and can make those changes as they go. So we do a lot on those things, and yes, we need to make changes real quick and do those things, and I think the restroom's back there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, especially can we give a hand to the candidates that have been here to answer the questions. And I do hope that this has been helpful, and it's certainly our heart to serve the community in a capacity like this, to get information out. This is critical. These are critical times and critical days, and I am looking forward to seeing how this new school board comes together, because I believe that what we're seeing are some really quality people coming together to serve this community in a way that will benefit our children. So with that, I will give you all time just to meet with some of if you don't want to meet with the candidates individually for a few minutes. This is a surprise to them, so I apologize about that, guys. I didn't put that in the agenda, but since it's my house, I got to do what I do, right? I mean, anyway, thank you for coming out, and the Lord bless you. Amen.